Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Dennis Brown, and this is my Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you 11 fears that every freight broker must overcome. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And the fact is, number one, I went away for spring break with my family. Some of you may have heard I was in Hilton Head, South Carolina. We had a great time, beautiful beach house, great weather, great friends, great family. Everything was amazing right up until the last day when both my wife and myself came down with COVID. Now, we didn't know that till we got back to New York, but we both tested positive for COVID. So did one of our daughters, even though she had no symptoms. And so to say the least, we're back from the grips of COVID. And this is my first live since being away for a couple of weeks. This is the longest I've been away from Freight Broker Bootcamp Lives. And geez, it's been a couple of years since I really took any time off. So I just want to let you know I'm back. I'm healthy. I'm here. I'll be back every week with these Freight Broker Bootcamp Lives where I do new trainings every week to try to help you start, grow, develop, launch your known freight brokerage or freight agency business. That's what we're here for. Thank you all for the kind notes. Thank you for all the messages. Thank you for everything. I truly appreciate it. Appreciate you being here today. Why don't we start out with this? Hit me up in the comments. Let me know the city and state you're logging in from. I'll give some shout outs and then we'll jump into the training. So the agenda is going to be this. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know where you're logging in from. I'll give some shout outs. Then we'll do the training, which again is 11 fears every freight broker must overcome. And then maybe we'll do a quick giveaway, right? Maybe we'll do a quick giveaway, maybe a Freightpreneur t-shirt or two. And then we will jump into live Q&A. If you stick around for the end, we'll do live Q&A. You can hit me up in the comments with your questions after the training, and I'll come in and try to do my best to answer those questions, point you in the right direction, okay? So thank you so much for being here. Comments, let's see, where's everybody coming in from? Let's see, we've got, holy cow. Tilsha Powell from Chicago, Antoinette from Cindy from Houston, Cindy Kane from Houston, Facebook user from Louisville, Rakesh from Fresno, Rasha from Michigan, Joe Ali from Atlanta, Georgia, Sugar Plum. Thank you so much. MV Royalty from Kansas City, Missouri, KO from Florida, Cheryl Ivy from New York, Pam Christian from McDonough, Georgia, Echo from Texas, Jackie Aqua from Austin, Matthew Fox from Brooksville, Florida, Joe Momighty from Florida, Carla Sutton from Indianapolis, Indiana, Deshaun Murray from Indiana, Brenda from La Crosse, Wisconsin, Lisa Ruff from South Carolina. Yeah, I was just there. It was beautiful, by the way. Hilton Head is gorgeous. First time I'd been there. Lee McCant from Georgia, Anna Collado from Pennsylvania, Shea Porter, B. Grant 50 from Jacksonville, Florida, Samir from Islamabad, Pakistan. So here we got another country in the house. Antoinette from Jacksonville, Florida, Jack Rich from Cleveland, Ohio, Shea Porter from Georgia, and Madi from New Jersey, Josh Paul from Bahamas, got another country in the house, Anne-Marie Barreto from Sebring, Florida, and a random Facebook user with no name from Texas. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate it. Do me a huge favor. If you missed these lives the last couple of weeks, like I did, I truly missed the lives. I couldn't do it live when I was in Hilton Head because the Wi-Fi at the beach house was terrible. And there was just no way streaming was going to work. The quality was going to be terrible. So I wasn't able to do it there. Last week, I was on my deathbed. There was no way you wanted to see me then. I was looking and feeling very rough, but I'm back. So if you look forward to these lives and you want me to continue to do these lives, do me a favor right now. Hit the like button and then click the share button. I don't care where you're watching this. I don't care if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're at. Share the stream. Let other people know about this free training that I do every single week without fail, okay? Unless I'm come down with COVID or I'm just traveling and there's no way to do it. But yeah, we do these trainings every single week at noon on Mondays. This is the exception. I couldn't do it today because I had installers here working on my kitchen. They were banging. It was crazy. And there was just no way I could do it. But thank God the kitchen is pretty much done. And thank you so much for being here. This is a little bit off time, but I didn't want to wait another week before I started to do another live for you guys. So today's the topic I shared with you is 11 fears that every freight broker must overcome. This is an important one. And this is one that probably not a lot of people talk about because it has to do with mindset and it has to do with kind of looking internally. So it can be challenging sometimes, but I've seen a lot of you that have been sitting here on the fence for a while now, whether that be you haven't decided to become a freight broker yet, or a freight agent, or whether you're trying to figure out what the right training is, or whether, you can do it part-time or you have to do it full-time or the finances. And you're kind of sitting here in limbo on the fence for months and sometimes even years. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The things I'm going to go over today, the 11 fears that I'm going to go over today, I think this is going to make a lot of sense to you. And I think hopefully when you come out of this, you'll be able to take some of what we talk about today, take some action and apply it so that you can finally get started on the path, starting your own freight brokerage or starting your own freight agency. Okay. All right. So let me grab a quick drink and then we're going to just jump right into the training. Again, the agenda is I'm going to go into the training. Then maybe I'll do a giveaway or two, and then we're going to do live Q&A, okay? Okay, so what do we got here? All right, we got a bunch of people joining us live, so that's awesome. Hit the like button wherever you're at, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Make sure you smash the like button, and then click and share the stream. I don't care if you share it on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, the newly purchased Twitter by Elon Musk. Or if you're wherever you're at, do me a favor, share the stream, let other people know about it. Truly appreciate it. All right, guys. So let me clear my throat. I still have a little bit of a residual here from COVID, but hopefully I can get through this thing without coughing. Today, we're going to talk about 11 fears that every freight broker must overcome. Now, I'm going to go over these 11, but I'm going to break them down a little bit. I'm not quite sure how long this is going to last. Hopefully maybe about 10 minutes or so. But the 11 fears that every freight broker must overcome starts with this. And these are in no discernible order. Number one, the fear of change. What you have to understand is as humans, we are programmed to resist change. We are frightened of change. Change is scary to most people, right? Our human psyche and our brain is designed to stay in the comfort zone and to stick with what you know and to not change, right? But what I want you to understand is that you have to learn to embrace the fact that you can't avoid change. The only constant in life is change. So whether you want it to or not, things are going to change. The big question is, are you going to initiate that change or is someone going to initiate that change to you, right? Is it going to be your change or someone else's change? Okay. So the best thing you can possibly do is to embrace it and understand that there is no way to avoid change. You have to embrace it. You have to steer into it, right? So that fear of change, I want you to understand it's real. It's real. It's part of our psyche. But it doesn't have to be, right? So don't fear change, embrace it. That's number one, okay? Number two, fear of failure. Now, fear of failure is really fear of embarrassment, possibly losing everything. It's our ego, it's our pride. It's the fact that we don't want the doubters to be right? They will have been right. Here's all I want you to do. This is very simple. Ask yourself one very simple question. And that is this. If you were on your deathbed right now, would you regret not seizing the opportunity to become a freight broker or freight agent? That's the question. If you were on your deathbed right now, would you regret not seizing that opportunity? Now, I can't answer that question for you. Only you can answer that question. But that's the simple question that you need to ask. And I can tell you that you're going to know one way or the other if this is something that's for you, if this is the right decision for you, just by analyzing that simple question. Okay. So number 2 is fear of failure. Number 3, fear that you don't know enough. Okay. Everyone has gaps in their knowledge and blind spots in their knowledge, right? Everybody has those gaps and blind spots. When I first started out, I had lots of gaps and blind spots. And over time, I've developed my skills, right? I've found mentors and coaches. I've taken trainings. But what I want you to understand is don't let fear cause you to constantly doubt yourself. One of the things that I see a lot from people when they're just getting started is, they don't believe they know enough, and so they're constantly doubting their self. Even when they learn a skill, even when they learn something new, and they're constantly second guessing themselves and doubting themselves. So that's number 3, fear that you don't know enough. Okay, trust me. You don't need to know everything, and you don't need to be perfect at everything in order to succeed. You just have to start. Okay. So number 4, fear of the unknown. This is one of the hardest ones. I mean, the fact is there's no guarantee when starting a freight brokerage or any business for that matter. There's absolutely no guarantees. The unknown is exactly that. It's unknown, and it terrifies people, right? Every time every time you make a sales call, every time you negotiate a rate, every time you dispatch a driver, every time you deliver a load on time, certainty, your level of certainty goes up, right? So every time you do something right, that level of certainty goes up. Equally, though, every time you do something wrong or you make a mistake, right, what happens is you're able to learn faster so that you can avoid that mistake again in the future. So the fear of the unknown, right? I'm either going to do it right or I'm going to do it wrong. Either way, it's a win-win. So don't let that paralyze you. Okay. That's number 4. Number 5, fear of committing. No, I didn't make it. Number 5, fear of committing to business expenses. All right. So business plans are great, and writing things down on paper is great. But some people just choke when it comes to putting their own money on the line. When it comes time, they got to write the check, or they got to put in their credit card, or whatever the case may be. Some people just choke when it comes to committing to business expenses, whether that be training expenses, or whether that be your application fee, or whether that be your load boards, or whether that be your bond, or whatever the case may be. The fact is, it's virtually impossible to start any business, including a freight brokerage, without committing at least a little bit of capital. Now, if you become a freight broker, you have a little bit more capital than if you become a freight agent. Freight agents are even less capital. So for those of you that are, that are really conservative with your finances, start as a freight agent. Our average agent made over $100,000 working from home the last year. We had top agents that made over $100,000 a month, right? As a freight agent. That's not even owning your own brokerage. Okay. So you can start very inexpensively, but that fear of committing to business expenses is a real fear that a lot of people have, but it's something you have to come to terms with. All right. Number 5. Number 6, fear of taking risks. Now, I want you to understand something. There's a difference between a unmitigated risk, like let's call it like a gambler who goes to Vegas and blows his life savings on the craps table or the roulette wheel. Okay, gambling, that's unmitigated risk, versus calculated risk. So calculated risk is when you decide to start a business, for example, and you find a mentor, you get trained, you save up the money required to get started. You invest in skills, you invest in learning, you invest in relationships, you invest in expertise, right? And so those things help to mitigate the risk. So how did I mitigate the risk when I first got started back in 2003? Well, I didn't know anything about logistics. You probably know more right now than I knew when I first got started. I had some entrepreneurial experience, but I had no freight brokerage, freight agency, or trucking experience. So what did I do? I went out and mitigated my risk by hiring a consultant who had been in the industry for 25 or 30 years, who was well known and respected. I hired him. I paid him $10,000 to fly to Buffalo, New York for a week to help fill in the gaps and to build my confidence so that I felt competent, so that I could then take that next step. Okay. So that was how I was able to mitigate my risk. How can you mitigate your risk? You can mitigate your risk by doing free trainings on time, like these on Freight Broker Bootcamp, or on my YouTube channel, or on Facebook. You can invest in an online course. You can invest in a coaching program. There's all kinds of ways. You can find a mentor. So there's all kinds of ways that you can help to mitigate your risk, right? Invest and learn new skills. Okay. So those are examples of number 6, which is fear of taking risk. Number 7 is fear of disappointing others. Nobody wants to disappoint their friends. Nobody wants to disappoint their family. Nobody wants to disappoint their loved ones. Nobody wants to disappoint their customers. Okay. But here's what you have to understand when it comes to overcoming this fear of disappointing others. You can either shrink your goals and live a very small life, uncontested, where you're never going to disappoint anybody except yourself, or, which is basically just playing it safe, or you can accept that responsibility. You can accept the fact that you may, at some point during your business or during your career, let somebody down. But the fact is it won't be for a lack of trying. It won't be for a lack of want, right? So I want you to understand, the fear of disappointing others is real. We all have it. We all have it at one time or another. But you can't allow it to paralyze you, because if you do, you'll never take that important step, right? All right, number 8, the fear of being pushed into an uncomfortable situation. All right, so perfect example of an uncomfortable situation. Public speaking, like I'm doing right now in front of hundreds and thousands of people, right? Public speaking is, some people say that public speaking, people are more afraid of public speaking than they are death, right? That's a running stat that you'll hear. Sales, negotiating, right? These are all things that people are, get uncomfortable with. There's an uncomfortable component to all of those things until you do them. But what you got to understand is, every time you do a sales call, every time you negotiate a load, every time you dispatch a driver, every time you steer into that uncomfort zone, right, and get uncomfortable, that you expand. It expands your skills. It expands your capabilities. It expands your mindset, and it allows you to go further, faster down the road, right? So, the fear of being pushed into into an uncomfortable situation, I get it, right? I was very uncomfortable with sales when I first started. I was very uncomfortable with public speaking when I first started. But here's the reality. The more you do it, it breeds confidence, and confidence, right, helps build competence, right? And vice versa. All right. So that's number 8, fear of being pushed into an uncomfortable situation. Number 9, fear of being wrong. Most entrepreneurs are A-type personalities, and we don't like to be wrong. But what I want you to understand is you don't need to be perfect in business. You don't need to always be right in order to be successful. You have to be willing to be wrong and open to learning from your mistakes. So perfection is unattainable. I want you to understand that. So you are going to be wrong. I have been wrong many, many, many times. But yet, throughout my career, I've been able to do over $200 million as an entrepreneur. But I've been wrong probably more than I've been right. But the key is, I learn from those mistakes. That's how we expedite the learning process. That's how we evolve. That's how we grow. Okay. So that is number 9, fear of being wrong. Number 10, fear that you're not good enough. Fear that you're not good enough. It's called imposter syndrome, right? So there's that self-doubt. There's that imposter syndrome. There's that fear that you're not competent, right? And like I said just a bit ago, competence builds confidence. So, you are good enough. Trust me, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to know all of the answers before you get started. Here's what I can tell you. There's that old adage, if you wait for all the lights to turn green before you head to work in the morning, you're always going to be late. Okay? So that's number 10, fear that you're not good enough. And number 11, drum roll, please, fear of saying no. Fear of saying no. Now, let me explain to you what I mean. Most brokers feel like any customer, especially when they're starting up, any customer, any load, any business is good, right? Anybody that's willing to talk to them is good, right? When they first start. What I want you to understand, and what I've stressed in my trainings and my philosophy in general, is you need to niche down and you need to focus on something very specific. And I talk about how to develop your niche and how to stay focused, right? So you need to focus on something specific. You need to grow your knowledge and your skills, and then you can expand from there. So saying no, learning to say no to prospects, to potential opportunities, learning how to say no to your own bad habits, learning how to say no is a very important lesson, right? I think I've done an entire training on this in the past. It's a very important and powerful lesson that every new broker needs to learn. I remember when I first got started, we had a very specific niche. I had salespeople and brokers that were working with me. They would come to me with things that were outside of our niche, and I would always have to tell them no. And it was very challenging at first to tell them no, because you don't want to demotivate them. But once they realized the power of niching down and the power of focusing on that niche, they never regretted it. They were never mad at me because they understood. That's why we were able to do our first year in business, 1.2 million in sales. And then our second year in business, $3.6 million in sales, and then 6 million, and then 12 million, and then 18 million. And eventually grew that business and did over $200 million as a freight broker. So those are the 11 fears that every freight broker needs to overcome. Now, I don't want to go back through these, but I do want you to understand that fear is a part of the game and you're not going to avoid it. That's the reason why I did this training. I want you to be able to tackle these issues head on. I want you to understand that you're not alone. I want you to understand that it's very common, that this is something that everybody goes through. So, all you got to do is push through it, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was something that helped you. If it did, and you are looking to become a freight broker or a freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students, been in business over a decade, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So you don't need to fear that, because you're guaranteed regardless. If you're not happy during the first 60 days, just send us an email. We will gladly give your money back, okay? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next Monday, like every Monday, for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Okay, guys, so now we're going to do, let me take a quick drink, and then we will do Q&A here in a minute. Well, let's do a giveaway real quick. Let me grab a drink, and we'll do a giveaway. So that's the training for today, which was the 11 fears that every freight broker must overcome. Now we'll do a quick giveaway, and then we'll jump into Q&A, and then we will wrap it up for today. But the good news is I'm back, right? I'm back from the grips of COVID, and I will be back every week with my goal of helping to support you in the launch of your new freight broker or freight agency business. All right. Don't ask your questions yet, because they're going to get lost in the thread. Okay. I'm going to do a giveaway really quick. Okay. I'm going to do a giveaway first. Here's all you got to do. I'm going to give away one of the coveted Freightpreneur t-shirts, someone that solves problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand. Okay. I'm going to give away one of these t-shirts. If you want a chance to win one of these t-shirts, here's all you have to do. All right. Listen to me now. Just lean in really, really quickly. All I want you to do is open up your cell phone. I don't care if you're on Android. I don't care if you're on Apple, whatever the case may be. What I want you to do, go into your favorite podcast app. If you're on Apple, just search for podcasts and you'll see the podcast app. It'll pop up on your screen. If you're on your Android phone, maybe you're using Google, or maybe you're using another podcast app, or maybe you're using Spotify. I want you to go in and I want you to search for the Freight Broker Bootcamp podcast. That's all you got to do. Pull up the podcast and you will see that, I launched this podcast a few months ago. We've been ranked in the top 100 of all entrepreneur podcasts on Apple, right? That's out of tens of thousands of podcasts. We're in the top 100, okay? And I want to thank you all for that. All you got to do in order to qualify to potentially win this shirt, or one of these shirts, not this exact shirt, but one of these shirts, is subscribe to the podcast, rate and review. You just got to subscribe, rate and review the podcast, and then come back in here into the comments and let me know that you subscribed, rated, and reviewed, and where you did that. If you did it on Apple, if you did it on Spotify, if you did it on Google, if you did it somewhere else, let me know. That's all you got to do. Subscribed, rated, and reviewed, and then let me know the platform that you did that. This is an honor system, okay? So I'm counting on you to be honorable, and then I'm going to pick one winner that is going to get a chance to win the Freightpreneur t-shirt, okay? So that's all you guys got to do is check out the Freight Broker Bootcamp podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Again, that could be Spotify or Google or the Apple podcast app. Subscribe, rate, and review, and then come back in here in the comments and let me know. Just like, and if you're a Facebook user that didn't allow StreamYard to display your name, you're going to need to do that. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to tell who you are. Okay. If I don't have your name, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. All right. So we're waiting for a few people to hit me up in the comments and let me know. No, it's Freight Broker Bootcamp, Frank. Freight Broker Bootcamp podcast. It's what you're listening to right now, which is my Freight Broker Bootcamp YouTube channel, but it's Freight Broker Bootcamp podcast. And then you can just, Freight Broker Bootcamp. All right. So hit me up in the comments once you do that. Great job. Rayed Islam, subscribe, rated, reviewed on Spotify. Awesome. All right. So once we get done with this giveaway, then we'll jump into some Q&A. So don't type your questions yet because they're going to get lost in the stream and I'm never going to find them and you're never going to get them answered. Okay. So hold tight. We'll do this quick giveaway of the shirt and then we'll jump into the Q&A and then we will let you guys go on your way. Hold on a minute here. I didn't realize my Mac wasn't plugged in. Okay. Yeah, it may not be on the Amazon app yet, but it's on Spotify, it's on Google Podcasts, and it's on Apple for sure. So any of those three, it's definitely on. It's on some more too, some smaller different apps that people have, but those are probably the three biggest ones that people give away, where people listen to podcasts. Okay, one more minute, and then I'm going to do the giveaway, and then we'll jump into the Q&A, okay? All right, good, Brenda. All right. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, guys, so here I'm going to do a quick giveaway here. I'm going to scroll down to the people that subscribed, rated, and reviewed the podcast, and then I am going to give away the shirt. All right, so here we go. I'm going to do my very non-scientific, close my eyes, scroll through, and point to somebody who, no, got to do it again. Sorry about that. Let me get my, all right, here we go. No. Give me 1 second. Somehow I scrolled way up. Okay. All right, great. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. The winner is Rayed Islam. Subscribed, rated, reviewed on Spotify. Okay. The only thing I should say, Ryed, is I hope you're in the US because I cannot ship this overseas. Let me know in the comments if you're in the US. I apologize. I should have announced that before. I do not ship this stuff overseas. There's just nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to spend $50 shipping a shirt to wherever overseas. It just goes against general principles. Let me know if you are in the United States, then you are going to qualify for the shirt. All you got to do is go to the Freight Broker Bootcamp Facebook page, hit me up with your full name, your mailing address, okay, and the size, right? This is a large. I weigh about 195 pounds, so they fit pretty true to size. And then if you do that on my Freight Broker Bootcamp Facebook page, first like the page and then message me your full name, your address, your size, and that you won the Freightpreneur t-shirt for the podcast subscribe contest. I will ship you off this shirt. You'll get it within a couple of weeks. Congratulations for playing along. Thank you, everybody who subscribed. Awesome. You're in California. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Do that. Send me your information, and I will definitely send you off one of the shirts. And thank you, everybody, for playing along. All right. So we did the quick giveaway. So now let's do some Q&A, guys. All I want you to do, if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent and you have some questions, maybe it's whatever those questions are, hit me up in the comments and let me know. Maybe it's about today's training. Maybe it's about getting your authority. Maybe it's about getting your bond. Maybe it's about freight broker sales. Maybe it's about getting customers. Maybe it's about dispatching. Maybe it's about freight broker software, whatever the case may be. Hit me up in the comments and let me know what questions you have. And I will do my absolute best to try to answer those questions with the time allotted, okay? All right. Okay, Terry Brown asks, what's the average cost to go all in as a broker? I don't know what you mean by all in as a broker. Do you mean just getting set up as a broker? Meaning getting your authority, your bond, all that sort of stuff, getting your license? I'm not really sure I know what you mean by all in. It's not expensive. Here's what I would suggest. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. And in that blog, there's a search bar. I want you to search for freight broker cost. I did an entire and very exhaustive and extensive blog post and video that breaks down all of the costs associated with becoming a freight broker and a freight agent separately. Okay. So it's a very exhaustive line by line by line by line cost metrics that breaks it all down for you. So I think that will definitely help you. Okay. Pretty sure that's going to help you a lot. Okay. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. And then in the search bar, type in freight broker cost or freight broker startup, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. Hope that helps. Okay, so MV Royalty asks, number one, I'm contracted with Axle Freight for my company. Will they pay both my brokerage and the carrier, or do I need a merchant account to pay carrier after I'm paid by Axle? What would you advise? I'm pretty sure I never did factoring, okay? And I've heard a lot of good things from past students about Axle, but I'm pretty sure that Axle will actually pay you. They'll advance you a chunk of the money, but they also pay your carriers direct. Okay. So I'm pretty sure, and there may be some people in the audience that can confirm that, because I'm sure there's some people here that are using Axle actively right now to move freight, but I'm pretty sure that they will actually pay the carrier, and then you will get an advance of the difference between whatever they would normally pay the carrier, the difference between what they pay the carrier and when the shipper pays them. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to work with Axle. You got to understand, some factoring companies issue you the money and you will pay the carriers. Some factoring companies actually want to pay the carriers direct, right? So there's a little bit of a difference there, depending upon the company you're working with. All right. So that was part number one. What would you advise? If you know that, I hope that helps. I think that makes sense. John, listen, everybody goes through this. John said, I was paralyzed today, making my very first calls for 2 hours, fighting with myself to dial the number. I didn't do it. What a coincidence you came up on this subject. Yeah, trust me. Every call that you make, it's going to get easier. I don't care if tomorrow you only make 5 calls, and then the next day you make 6 calls, and the next day you make 10 calls, and the next day you make 20 calls. You got to start somewhere. Okay. I promise you, it's not nearly as bad as you think. You've built it up in your head that this phone weighs 1,000 pounds now, and that, you know, that the world's going to end if somebody tells you no. I promise you it's not. Right. So just get started. Start making those calls. It's not nearly as bad as you think. But thanks for being honest and transparent and helping everybody else, because I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Okay, so Charles Fry asks, for the first days in, I expect to be doing research on shippers during off hours and banging out phone calls all day. What's a good target number of calls per day? 100, 200? Well, you know, there's a difference between high volume, smile and dial, just I have a phone number and I have a company name, and you're just going to smile and dial and try to make 100 plus phone calls a day. There's people do that, and that can work. It's not my style, because that high volume call routine has a tendency to burn people out very quickly. So what I would rather see you do is to do full and complete, do some research, gather some sales intelligence on each one of the prospects, not before you do it, as you're doing it. So you pull up a lead, you see it on your list, you do a search on LinkedIn, you do a search on their website, you do a search on Google, you gather a little bit of sales intelligence. Maybe it takes you 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 minutes. And then while that information is fresh in your brain, you contact that prospect. Now you've got that information. Even if they don't pick up the phone, you never need to do that research again. But you have that information, you have that sales intelligence, you have that information as a way to build rapport faster, right? You know what their products are. You know some of their recent press release. You know who the CEO of the company is. You know, how the shipping manager, how long they've been working there, the job they had before, whether they went to college. Gathering that sales intelligence and doing that research, to me, is more valuable than just pure numbers. So I'd rather see you do that type of a process that I just described to you and do 30 or 40 or 50 calls a day than to do 100 blind calls just hoping to hit pay dirt, just hoping to get lucky. Okay? I think that research and thoughtfulness will really pay off. I know it has for me. And congratulations for becoming a brand new boot camp member today. Congrats, Charles. Rayito Del Sol asks, how hard is it to get bonded? It's not hard to get bonded. To be extremely honest with you, it's not hard at all. It's based on your personal credit. So here's the rule of thumb. The better your credit, the lower the bond cost. The worse your credit, the higher the bond cost. So we've developed a partnership with a well-respected bonding company that has bonded thousands and thousands of brokers over the years. And I'm going to share with you a link right now. If you're curious about becoming a freight broker and you need your bond and you want to compare prices, or, maybe you've already got your bond and it's up for renewal, or maybe you're just looking to get started and you need to understand what it's going to cost you, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/bond. Okay. We've partnered with one of the most established bonding surety bond companies out there. What I've heard from students directly is they are giving very competitive rates. The application process is very simple, and they're doing a really great job for a lot of the Freight Broker Bootcamp students. So that's where you can go if you want to find an expert, right? And I vetted this company. They've been in business for a very long time. Again, they've written bonds for thousands and thousands of different brokers. Okay, and so I sought them out as a resource for all of my students because I get a lot of questions. I am not a freight broker bonding expert by any stretch. But the people at this company know exactly what they're doing. So check it out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/bond. Fill out the application. They'll contact you. They'll go through the entire process, and it's painless. Okay. If you're looking for carriers, you're going to go to a load board. Go to the DAT, the DAT, or go to Truck Stop, or go to one of the major load boards. That is going to be the best place to find carriers specific to your shipper needs. So if you have a shipper that has loads going from Buffalo, New York to Chicago, you're going to need carrier, on a van, you're going to need carriers that run that type of equipment and run that lane. Okay. That's how you'll find them. You'll find them using the load boards. That's predominantly how you as a new broker are going to find carriers to haul your freight, is through load boards. Now, after you've developed a relationship with that carrier, right, now you can develop an enhanced relationship, and you don't need to necessarily just pull their trucks off of a load board. Now you have a relationship. You've already done business with them. They know who you are. They know you're going to pay your bills. They've got 7 trucks. They like to get up in the Northeast. They're there every week, and they like to run Midwest, right? So once you have that type of relationship, now you can start developing, you can email them when you're looking for trucks. You can contact them by phone, but you've got to develop that relationship somehow. And first base in that type of relationship usually comes from a load board like the DAT or Internet Truck Stop. So I hope that helps. Number one, no, you don't need your own assets to compete. I never had assets. Most of my students, I would tell you, most of the success stories, 9 out of 10 of the success stories that I've had come out of Freight Broker Bootcamp do not have their own assets. You do not need your own assets. As a freight broker, let me just say this emphatically. You do not need your own assets. Now, if you have your own assets, that's great, right? You can play both sides of the coin. You can have your asset side and your non-asset side. But you do not need your own assets in order to be successful and compete. I promise you. Who's responsible for the freight damage? The responsible party for the freight damage is typically the one of two parties, either the shipper or the carrier. Now, let me explain to you what I mean. The carrier has cargo and liability insurance. Typically, have cargo insurance that's going to exceed the value of the cargo. So let's say, for example, you're shipping a load of buy drinks, right? These are cases and cases of buy drinks. And let's say the value of that load is $30,000. Your job as a broker is to make sure that the insurance value that is covered on that load exceeds the value of the cargo itself. Most carriers carry about $100,000 in cargo insurance, unless they're specialized, and then maybe they have $250,000 or maybe $500,000 or more, depending upon the type of cargo. But the carrier is going to be responsible for having cargo insurance. Now, the party that's going to be at fault, depending upon how the product was damaged, it could be the shipper. Maybe they loaded it wrong. It could be the carrier. Because maybe for whatever reason, maybe it shifted during transit and it damaged some cases, and some of those cases broke open, and there's going to be some sort of a damage claim. It really depends, but typically the carrier is going to have, the carrier is always going to have cargo insurance to cover that. And that would be part of a cargo claim that would take place in the event that there is some sort of damage. So I hope that helps. But you as the broker are not responsible for cargo claims. Okay. You are not a party to the shipment. You are not the shipper. You are not the carrier. You are a broker. You are simply managing the transportation. You are not responsible, nor should you accept liability to be responsible for the cargo insurance or for the liability insurance. Your liability ends at negligent. If you are negligent in your actions, meaning, I'll give you a perfect example. You loaded a truckload of buy drinks, and the value of those buy drinks was $50,000, but the carrier only had $25,000 in insurance coverage for the cargo. And let's say, for example, that tractor trailer goes off the road and they lose the entire load. You could potentially be liable because of your negligence. You did not make sure that that carrier had the proper insurance value for cargo insurance to cover the value of the load. That's an example of you as a broker being negligent. Okay. You did not cross all your I's, cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure. And so therefore you may have some negligence. All you have to do predominantly is to make sure, number one, that the carrier's authority is active and make sure they have the proper insurance. Those are the two primary things you absolutely need to do in order to just check those boxes and make sure that you're not liable. Okay. So I hope that helps. Joe Bob. Why do freight agents need general liability insurance? I thought brokers take responsibility. Freight agents don't need general liability insurance. It's not a requirement. Now, if your broker that you work for is requiring that, that's a requirement that they're having. Okay. But by law, it's not required. Now, if you work for a certain brokerage as an agent and they're requiring it, that's one of their policies. You can ask them that question. But by law, it's not required. Now, the reason why a broker or someone might want an agent to have general liability insurance coverage is just some additional coverage in the event that something goes wrong, right? It's always better if you're a part to a transaction, if everybody has insurance, because in the event that there's a lawsuit, then those lawyers are all going to get together and they'll be able to hopefully be able to resolve any sort of insurance claim depending upon what it is. But by law, a freight agent is not required. A business owner is not required to have general liability. Okay. So freight agents aren't either. Freight brokers aren't responsible for having general liability. Now, a lot of shippers will require it, but they're not required by law to have general liability insurance. Hope that helps. Okay, so Katina asks, when using a factoring company, should I consider non-recourse or recourse? All right. So what you guys got to understand is this. With factoring, there's called recourse and non-recourse. Recourse factoring means that if you factor an invoice through a factoring company and they advance you money to pay the carrier, or they pay the carrier out of that advance, and then that shipper does not pay that bill, the factoring company can come back on you on that money that they advanced you for that transaction. That's called recourse factoring, meaning they have recourse in the event that the shipper does not pay the bill. Non-recourse factoring means that theoretically, that in the event that the shipper doesn't pay the bill, the factoring company is responsible and they cannot come back and try to claw back that money from you. Now, I've never done factoring myself, but a lot of students have. And my understanding is that, number one, there's very few companies out there that do non-recourse. Number two, it's significantly more expensive, sometimes double or more what non-recourse factoring is, or what recourse factoring is. And then, and also sometimes there's a lot of fine print in there about non-recourse. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. My suggestion to you is to do whatever's right for you. Me personally, I would probably keep my costs down and do recourse factoring. And then just make sure that I managed the credit properly so that I wasn't getting overextended with shippers, and I would cut them off in the event that they weren't paying their bills on time to avoid running up any sort of a large debt that might go bad. And then the factoring company is trying to claw it back. So I hope that helps, but that would be my 2 cents. Star Owens asked, I have my authority as a broker. Now what? Well, now that you have your broker authority, you got to get started. So you got to figure out what niche you're going to get involved with, right? Find your niche. And then you got to make a list of companies that you're going to do outreach to. And then you need to do outreach. That outreach is usually done either the phone or face-to-face or email or a combination of those things. And then once you start a conversation with one of your shipping prospects, that typically leads to a freight quote. That freight quote can sometimes lead to an opportunity where they will tender you a load. Once they tender you a load, then obviously you're going to go through the process of finding a carrier, dispatching the driver, delivering it out, and then you're going to invoice the shipper, which you'll eventually pay the carrier, and the shipper will pay you, and there goes the transaction. So that's your first load, okay? So I did an entire training on this. If you go to my YouTube channel, let's see really quick. Where is it? Pull it up. If you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/freight brokers, and you subscribe to the channel, and then there's a little search bar in there on my channel, and you search for 7 steps to becoming a freight broker. There's an entire training I did and a downloadable cheat sheet that you can get. So if you go to that YouTube channel.com/freight brokers, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, make sure you get notified whenever new videos come out. And then you search my channel for 7 steps to become a freight broker. There's an entire training video with a downloadable cheat sheet that you can use to kind of follow through those steps. Okay. So I hope that helps. What do you say to shippers when cold calling? Well, here's the mistake that most freight brokers make, or freight agents. They make it all about them. Hi, my name is Dennis. I work with XYZ Logistics. We do full truckload freight. I was curious if we might be able to help you move some of your freight. Very unoriginal, very basic, not very compelling, not very interesting, and sounds just like every other broker out there. So that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to sound like every other broker out there. If you do, then you're going to get treated just like every other broker that says that. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to make it about you. What you want to do is you want to make it about them. So this is where gathering some sales intelligence and coming up with a compelling sales hook that's relevant and contextual to your prospect makes a ton of sense. Let me give you an example. I'm looking up, I have on my list here of leads, I've got XYZ Piping Company or XYZ Steel Company. And I do a little bit of research on their website, and I realize that they just acquired another company a couple of months ago, which was a competitor. They acquired that company, and that means they're going to be, folding that company in. So now I've got that sales intelligence. I go on LinkedIn, I find the shipping manager, I find their name, I've got their phone number, I call up the prospect, I call up the company, I ask for the shipping manager direct by name, he picks up the phone, and rather than me begging him for freight or telling him all about me, I start the conversation and make it about them. And I might say something to the effect of, hey, congratulations, Joe, I saw how you guys had just acquired XYZ company. I just wanted to reach out really quick, introduce myself, and let you know that we've helped a lot of companies in this same situation when they're doing acquisitions and rolling out new products and those sorts of things. How's the acquisition actually going? How has it changed? How has that impacted your job? So you see how I'm making it about them, and I'm using questions, and I'm using things that are highly relevant. My conversation sounds very, very different than any other freight broker that's ever called them. So because I'm different, it's easy to have that conversation. But when you sound like everybody else, they're just going to give you the Heisman. Okay. You're just going to get the Heisman. That's what's going to happen. So I say this all the time. I didn't coin this phrase, but different is better than better. You can't be better at everything. You can't be better, have better rates and better technology and better customer service and better communications. That's really hard in a market like this, but you can definitely be different. And one of the ways you can be different and need to be different is in the communication style that you have and in the types of conversations and the topic of the conversation that you're having. So I make the conversation about them, not about me. And that's a perfect example of how to be different. And I think it'll go a long way for you. Now, if you guys are curious about learning how to sell, if you really want to learn the secret to selling freight brokerage, right? I am going to be launching my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator very soon. Okay. So if you guys want to, let's see, hold on a minute. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be launching my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program. This is where I take that piece of my brain and I share it with you. It's a 5-week Freight Broker sales coaching program with an online course. We go through it for 5 weeks. I become your coach. I become your mentor. I help you with this entire process. I teach you all my customer acquisition strategies. I teach you everything I know about freight broker sales. And if you want to be notified when that program goes live, it's going to go live in the next 30 days. Okay. I don't have an exact date yet, but it's going to go live in the next 30 days. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. All you got to do is get on the wait list. It costs you nothing to get on the wait list. Now, this is not a free program. Last time I rolled it out, it was $1,000. Chances are the price is going to go up this next time. I've been holding the price, but I swore I was going to increase it last time. Last time it was $1,000 and I sold out 100 spots in just a few days. Okay. So this is going to sell out again. 100% fact, it's going to sell out. So if you guys want to learn, my system for selling and acquiring customers, getting customers and growing rapidly as a freight brokerage, just get on the wait list, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. It's absolutely free to get on the wait list. You will be one of the first to get notified. There'll be a link there where you can get enrolled. You'll see all the details, and that's going to be launching in the next 30 days. Okay. So if you guys are curious about that now, just know, I think I've had 4 cohorts now for this Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. We've had over 300 people go through the program. We've had well over 100 people that did an exit survey after the program, meaning they went through a 10-question survey after the program and completed the survey. And one of the questions that I asked them as a part of that program was, how likely are you to refer this program to a friend or family member? And 1 would mean, they weren't likely, and 10 would mean they were highly likely. Out of the 100+ people that completed the survey, our average response on that question is a 9.5 out of 10. Okay. Now I'm not making these numbers up. These are the numbers that were submitted through the survey of past students. Okay. So they rated this program 9.5 out of 10 of the likelihood that they would recommend this to a friend. Okay. So it's going to sell out. I'm going to be launching in the next 30 days. Get on the wait list. I promise you, some of you are going to come back to me after the program sold out and you're saying, oh, I wish I would have got on the wait list. Please, please, please. And I'm not going to be able to do it because, again, I have to cap this out in no more than 100. I may reduce it this time, depending upon what my schedule's like. But again, that's a 5-week live hands-on coaching program where I work with you and I teach that entire part of my process. I become your coach, your mentor as it relates to freight broker sales. Okay. So I hope that helps. freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. Deshaun Murray asks, can you start a freight brokerage part-time? And then the second question is, what is the best software to use? Okay. You can start your freight brokerage or your freight agency part-time, but it's harder. Okay. It is harder to start part-time because you have a limited amount of time, right? So your time is constrained. Here's what I would tell you. You can start it part-time, but you can't start it in your spare time, meaning this is not a hobby. This is not a side hustle. This is a real business, and it takes real effort, and it takes real commitment, and it takes real time. So yes, you can get started. You can get your authority. You could become an agent. You could start getting your first few customers. You can start moving some loads, and you can get your feet wet that way. But eventually, if the business is going to survive and thrive, you're going to have to go all in at some point. But I have had students that have went part-time, launched the business while they were either driving truck or maybe they were working nights at another job. The key thing is you have to be able to have access to the internet and to be able to make and take calls during normal business hours, because most freight moves somewhere between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. During normal business hours, Monday through Friday, with obviously some freight moving on weekends. But you will not be able to build this type of a business, unless you're able to, communicate with people effectively during those hours. Okay. So the second question is, what's the best software to use? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. Okay. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp / blog right here. Freightbrokerbootcamp / blog. And that's my blog. And you'll see a little search bar in the blog where you can type software. If you type software, you're going to see an entire article and video and in training that I did that talks about the top freight broker software, including the freight broker transportation management software, freight broker load boards, accounting software, CRMs, all kinds of different software that's very relevant and important to launching and growing a highly successful freight brokerage. So just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com / blog, search for software, and you'll see the entire video, the entire article. It's very in-depth. It's very specific. And I even make specific recommendations of different software in each one of those categories. Okay. So I hope that helps. All right, I'm scrolling, trying to find a question that's relevant, something I haven't answered. Yeah, I don't, anything that's related to dispatch questions, I'm not going to answer because I don't teach dispatch. Deb Smith asked, when you first started, did you use a factoring company? I did not use a factoring company. We were fortunate. I had a little bit of capital. We were able to set up a credit line because they had really good credit. And we were able to do that ourselves and then grow that credit line to accommodate the business. But most people are not able to as a startup. Most people will start out with factoring until they build their own business credit where they can start working with a bank and establish some sort of a credit line. And then they'll move away from factoring eventually and then just have their own credit line and manage their own, they'll do their own financial management at that point. But that usually takes at least a couple of years of working history before banks are going to take a chance on a new business. Okay, so here's a question from Yvonne Simmons. I'm looking to get started as a freight agent, then eventually become an agent. Starting as a freight agent, and then eventually becoming a broker. I'll bet she meant. I just don't know where to start. Any suggestions? Yvonne, where you need to get started is you need to get trained. So if you fully understand the role and the job and the responsibilities of a freight agent, then you can just go find a broker, develop a relationship, work under them, set up a contract, a revenue sharing relationship with them as an agent where you'll work under the broker and you can just get going. Okay. And start developing your niche, contacting your prospects and moving freight. If you already have all those I's dotted and T's crossed. If you don't have all those I's dotted and T's crossed, you're going to need some training. That's where Freight Broker Bootcamp comes in. Trained over 10,000 students, been in business over a decade. The training covers not only how to become a freight broker, but how to become a freight agent. The reason why we did one training to cover both is because number one, there's a bunch of overlap. And number two, a lot of people like yourself aren't quite sure if they want to start as a broker or start as an agent. And rather than having two different courses that you'd have to buy, I just combined it into one. Okay. So Freight Broker Bootcamp covers both. You can become a gold member. That's a 1-year membership. I think it starts at $185. If you want a lifetime platinum membership with lifetime support, I think it's $389 one-time cost. And again, you can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate you being here. I will try to come back in later in the week and maybe answer some of your questions in the thread. I'm getting a lot of the same questions over and over again. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for all the kind words. We made it through COVID. Thank God. Thank God my wife and family and my daughter were fine. I'm back. I'm ready to go. We're going to be doing these lives every Monday. Again, for those of you that are interested in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, okay? If you want to be a part of that 5-week Freight Broker Sales Accelerator coaching program, you need to get on the wait list. You need to get on the wait list, because what I'm going to do once it releases, I'm going to send a text. You'll get notified immediately. There'll be a link. That program is going to fill up quickly. I wouldn't be surprised this time if it sells out in less than 24 hours. Last time, I think it took 2 or 3 days before the whole thing sold out. We had 100 members in that program, and it was an amazing cohort. They were some great people. I worked with them for 5 weeks, back to back to help them learn and implement my entire Freight Broker Sales Accelerator system. And the feedback has been phenomenal. So my suggestion to you, if you need help with getting customers, you need help with freight broker sales, if you're struggling on the sales side, get on the wait list. If you're just getting started, you can check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Again, we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. I can't make it any easier than that. Trained over 10,000 students. And as soon as you sign up, you'll get instant online access where you'll have access to that 24/7. You don't need to wait for me. You don't need to wait for another teacher. You don't need to wait. All of the materials there just waiting for you to consume it. Okay. So I hope you guys have an awesome week. And I will see you next week with another Monday Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. This next week, it'll be at noon like always. Thank you so much for being here. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you next week.